10 random magic cards, rated, reviewed, assigned a number, day number 7, everybody. We made it to a week. Aren't we very proud of ourselves? Let's go ahead and pat ourselves on the back. First card of the day, Grixis Slave Driver. This is, yikes. This is 6 mana, 5 and a black for a 4/4 zombie giant. When it leaves the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This also has Unearth for 3 and a black. So you can return it from your graveyard to the battlefield against haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield, Unearth only as a sorcery. This card costs next to nothing and has been reprinted a couple of times. That's because it's not a very good card. It just kind of isn't. It honestly not a very... it costs way too much. You know what I mean? And, I get a 2/2 twice? Okay, so this is one of those you're supposed to throw into your graveyard, and then you get a 4 mana 4/4 haste, which leaves behind a 2/2. And that seems okay in a game of Limited. Pretty awful in a game of Commander, especially nowadays, whenever that happens to be. Whenever you're watching this video, this card's just going to get worse over time, so statement really should hold up, I hope. But anyway, this is like a 1 point. This is like a 1. It's got to be better than that, right? It's like a 1.3. Let's just say that much. Moving on is Omnath Locus of Mana. Neat. Okay, that's a pretty neat one. This is 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 1/1 legendary elemental. Green mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as steps and phases in. And Omnath gets +1/+1 for each green mana in your mana pool. Yes, your mana pool. This is still like $4, $3 to order a cheap copy of. And that ain't bad, because this is another one of those that can just go in any green commander deck. Like if your deck is mono green, then suddenly this is a ramp piece that benefits from you having ramped, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of incredible over the course of multiple turns. It can be a good commander, but it can also just go in the 99 of like multiple green commander decks and have a lot of fun. So sweet card, another good cube card for what that's worth. I know it's not worth a lot to a lot of people, but damn it, it's worth something to me. So I got to point it out when it happens. It tends to happen a lot, but yeah, kind of celebrated commander card that, like a lot of commander cards from this particular period, isn't played quite as much as it used to be. But, I guarantee that if enough people watch this video, there's going to be a couple in the comment section that have an Omnath deck in their commander collection, or at the very least, again, he's in the 99 somewhere. So cool card. You don't have to run him if you're playing green, but there's almost no reason not to when you really get down to it. So I'm going to give this card like a 7.1 in that area, which, just for context, is actually a very, very good score. But we'll move on to Keeper of Secrets. This is from Warhammer, and I don't think I've ever read it, so this will be fun. 6 mana, 5 and a red for a 6/4 demon. Hey, 6 mana for a 6/4. We got a crawl worm. I like that. It's also first strike and haste. 6 mana, 6/4 first strike haste with Symphony of Pain. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. Sick. That's awesome. It says target and not each, which I don't love. But yeah, casting a spell from anywhere other than your hand. So plotting a spell, foretelling a spell, casting cards out of your graveyard with like flashback, for instance. There's a lot of ways to make this work, actually. I also like that if you're like casting a spell for free for whatever reason, right? Then you still get to deal the spell's mana value, like not how much mana you paid, but the spell's mana value, even if you paid nothing. So, like a couple of videos ago, we saw that thing that like procs on combat damage and always goes unblocked. And when it does hit for combat damage, you can like look at the top, whatever it takes, cards of an opponent's library until you hit an instant or sorcery, and then you play that for free, right? So like stuff like that. You play your opponent's own spells against them in that case, and also deal damage to them. So like, again, effects like that basically, or like outrageous robbery is is another one. Anything where you're playing cards out of exile, for instance, or stuff like that. So just really, really neat card right here, man. It does cost an awful lot. Both in terms of the mana cost in an actual real world game of Commander, and in terms of the actual price of the card. It's like $5 for a cheap copy of this. So neat. I guess people have caught on to this. First time I'm seeing it ever, and I've spent a lot of time on it, but it's because I kind of like this, dude. I like this kind of a lot. So really powerful effect as long as you can, facilitate it. But I can think of like 5 commanders off the top of my head that want this card in the deck because they specifically cast stuff from not your hand. And there's got to be more than the half dozen commanders I can think of. There's probably at least twice that many, if not twice that many, right? So again, this is probably going to go in a bunch of different decks. And if you can't tell, I'm excited, wagging my knees about it right now. Just really restless legging on this thing because, damn son, where'd you get that? Where'd you find this? Good card, man. I'm gonna give this like a solid 7, and it's probably so narrow that I should give it like a 6, to be honest. But man, if you get this thing cooking, man, you set the house on fire. It's a good card, dude. But moving on. Hopefully, we're trying to randomize. Let's see if they'll let us do it. They do. Here's Multiclass Balck. This is a single mana. I've never read this card either. A single mana for an equipment. It's an artifact. Equipped creature has lifelink if you control a cleric, death touch if you control a rogue, haste if you control a warrior, and flying if you control a wizard. Okay. As long as you have a full party, prevent all damage that would be dealt to an equipped creature, and you can equip for just 2. So 1 mana to get it on the table, 2 mana to equip, and then sick keyword abilities. You can have a undamageable lifelink death touch haste flyer, and that's great. But how often are you actually going to have a full party? That said, even if you only have 2 of the creature types in play, then cleric, wizard, flying, lifelink, that's kind of cool. Like you might have a creature that's 2 creature types, maybe, like a cleric, wizard. That doesn't happen very often or almost ever, but still, you get what I'm saying. I kind of like it. I also like that if you control any changeling creature whatsoever, then suddenly you don't have a full party. Because I think to have a full party, you specifically have to have 1 of each thing. But you do if you have a changeling creature. You do have a cleric. You do have a rogue. You do have a warrior. You do have a wizard, right? So pretty cool in changeling decks, right? Let's say that much. But still, I'm just going to give this a 4.3 because it's probably not going to see play in everything. But I don't know. There's definitely things to love about it. Just like me. Not going to... I really won't see play everywhere, but I swear I have some redeemable qualities. Next is Press the Enemy. I've never seen this either. This is a lot of cards I've never seen to finish the week today. This is 4 mana. 2 and 2 black for an instant. Return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. You may cast an instant or sorcery with equal or lesser value mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. Okay, so maybe I have seen this. That seems really, really familiar. This is pretty neat. Very, very unique sort of effect. It does blue stuff that we've seen before, but being able to do sort of both of these things at the same time is really hot. It's very it feels like a trap in some ways because you have to wait for your opponent to do something that you actually care about returning to their hand or whatever. It costs an awful lot of mana to do that when you could just be playing Remand. It costs twice as much as Remand. But that said, this bounces a non-land permanent. It interacts with the stack. It lets you play something free, which, you might be able to do a card draw spell or something like that. It is a very, very cool design. And I imagine it's actually not too hard to bust somebody with this in a game of Commander, So I kind of like it as a reactive card. Altogether, I'm going to give it a 5.4. I think it's cool, but let's move on to Secluded Glen. Ooh, Secluded Glen. I want to see the Lorwyn one. Secluded Glen is a Dimir land. It comes into play. You can reveal a fairy from your hand. If you don't, this thing comes into play tapped. You can tap it for blue or black. So there's a bunch of these in Lorwyn that all correspond to different creature types, but this is the one that saw the most play, the one that I played the most often because I played blue-black fairies competitively. Went to multiple Pro Tour qualifiers and stuff while this deck was in standard. And I played an awful lot of blue-black fairies. And so Secluded Glen was not just me, but the most played sort of all of these. And it's still really good to this day. Still really, really good to this day. I would say that if you have, it doesn't even have to be a fairies deck, but if you incidentally have 4 fairies in your commander deck, just because they're good, I got Fairy Mastermind or something in my commander deck, then suddenly this is good. This is actually okay. You don't have to be all in on fairies. It can be a tap land that produces both of your important colors that I don't know, 1 out of 4 times comes into play untapped, and that's fine. That's fine. There's plenty of really playable fairies. Doesn't have to put you in fairies. So I don't know. Good card. Still $6 from Lorwyn for some reason, and less than a quarter from Wilds of Eldraine Commander. Probably because, it's the older set, very likely. But either way, I will always love Secluded Glen. And I have to give pretty much all of these cards the same score, these creature type matters ones from Lorwyn. But Secluded Glen has a special place in my heart. I have to give this, like a 6.5, because like you're only gonna really play them mostly in the deck where the creature type matters, But in those decks, they're the best like dual lands you can play that aren't like the old school duels, right? So pretty good, pretty good. But we'll move on to Knight of the Last Breath. This is not very good. 7 mana, 5 a black and a white for a 4/4 giant knight. Bars, by the way, those rhymes. This you can pay 3 and sacrifice another non-token creature to create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. And this has Afterlife 3. So when this dies, you get 3 1/1 white and black spirit creature tokens with flying. So cast Spectral Procession when this dies. It's actually kind of sick, but altogether not that great. Fun little mana sink that makes spirits. And then if your opponent ever deals with it, it makes more spirits. And that's cute, but probably not actually a great Magic card. So I'm just going to give this like a 2.5. I think there might be like a fun thing or two to do with it, but that's literally it. Also, extra Orzhov points, because that's the kind of boy I am. But next is Waterknot. 3 mana, 1 and 2 blue for an aura that enchants a creature. When it ETBs, tap that creature, and I bet you know what the rest says. The creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. There's like 8 of these. I feel like there's a million of these in Magic at this point. What do you give them? A 1.8. I give him a 1.8. Little Rebluval. Classic Rebluval even. It's fine. So we'll move on to, what the hell is this? Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. I forgot his actual name. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. 4 mana, 1 and 3 blue for a 4 loyalty legendary Jace Planeswalker. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Thassa's Oracle. You can also +1 to have target player put the top 2 cards of their library in their yard and draw a card. Or you can -8 Jace to draw 7 cards, and if your library has no cards in it, you win the game, Buster. So really, it's 2 ways of doing that. But I guess it's the sort of almost kind of Thassa's Oracle text on this second copy of Thassa's Oracle in your commander deck that makes this pretty much worth playing. I will say that the cheapest copy of this is like right at $5, and there's like $12 copies of it. And this Japanese promo is $157, which is a little much, kind of a lot. So like the card is not necessarily cheap to order, and it's because Thassa's Oracle is pretty good. One of the better cards I think in CEDH at this point, but people sure do hate it, and there's a reason for that. So kind of makes me hate this card, just as a matter of course. I do think that effects like this are sometimes cool, like Laboratory Maniac effects, which is what this is really closer to. Even though, come on, Thassa's Oracle, they're all the same kind of functionally. So as far as fun factor for other people in Commander go, I kind of want to give this a relatively low score, but it's a Thassa's Oracle that costs like twice the mana and all, you know what I mean? So it's not amazing a lot of the time. All that said, this is still a really powerful, very unique effect still in the game of Magic that I'm going to give a 6.84 because when it hits, baby. So last card of the first week, it's Danny Pink, card from Doctor Who. 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 4/3 legendary human soldier advisor with Mentor. That means when it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on another attacking creature with lesser power. Creatures you control have, whenever one or more counters are put on this creature for the first time, each turn, draw a card. So, cool thing. If it mentors a guy, you get to draw a card. That's it. But this guy's like never going to be your commander. I imagine. This guy's probably not going to be your commander, but obviously he doesn't have to mentor stuff, right? Like you can just be putting counters on stuff and drawing 5 cards a turn or whatever, something like that, and then just do it all over again the next turn. So that's kind of cute if you have enough creatures and enough ways to apply counters. So he gives himself this ability too, which I think is cool. But altogether, even though he's definitely better than some of the cards we've looked at in this series so far, I can't score him too high, but I am going to give him like slightly north of a 5. I think he's like creative enough where you can do fun stuff if he is your commander, but he can still benefit you like in the 99 of plenty of other decks that care about like +1/+1 counters or even other kind of counters, right? For that matter. So I think he's a cool card that like fits a certain niche that like some decks, especially in blue, didn't necessarily have all the access to in the world. So I'll give him like a 5.3. Mr. Pink is worth a 5.3. Why not? But that is it. We have completed a week, everybody. Again, give yourselves a big old fat pat on the back and congratulate yourselves for getting this far. But hopefully we're going to do this every day. until time ends. So with that in mind, I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Subscribe to the sandwich, to the channel. Subscribe to the submarine if you haven't done it yet, because again, we do these every day, and that's every day. Just to reiterate. So I don't know. Usually I've ended the video by now. Bye.